can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Thank you for joining us here today on Integrity Investing. Co-host Jim Rossetti, and with me, of course, is Margaret Wittkopp. She is the host of this series. Margaret, welcome. Margaret is an author. Margaret is an entrepreneur. Margaret is also the founder of Veritas Financial. And you got a lot of titles, Margaret. You got a lot of interesting things.
You can take all of that and just say, hi, I'm Margie. And that's that. Yep. Basically, I often describe myself as just a farm girl who grew up in the southeastern Wisconsin on a typical dairy farm. And, and I learned along the way. But what I'd like to really talk about today, Jim, and that is in the world of money, how we, where do we come from? What are the cultural messages that are given to us as we grow up? And you and I can share where we came from and maybe just make some assertions as we go along here and help our listeners kind of identify if they can, or, reveal for themselves what their relationship with money is and where it came from. And what are some of the, things that get in their way? It's, hey, until you can find out what the things that are in your way are, you can't get them out of your way, right? You don't even know they're there. It's stuff you don't even know that is there. And it's just clouding your whole vision of what could be the possibilities. Where do we get this, our reality? Because as a baby, let's just go back. When you're born, a baby, and you come out of the womb, you don't know what money is. You don't know what a $5 bill is versus a $100 bill, or you don't even know what a right. Yeah, you don't have a clue. In fact, I bet your mom had to take a few pennies out of your mouth from time to time if you picked them up off the floor. I can remember doing that with my little brothers and sisters, going, don't swallow that.
Right.
But,
well, Margaret,
because a baby doesn't know what money is.
No.
But then along the way, we learn something about that world and what it means. So I'm going to ask you, Jim, when do you first recall becoming aware of the world of money? When do you think it was? Can you think back? Give yourself a second here. What comes to mind?
Yeah, I probably, 7, 8, 9, somewhere between, I would say between 9 and 12 years old is when I started to realize money, because my parents had me on I get a little bit of money if I did some work around the house and I did some yard work and I jumped in but it was a big deal. And as far as the money part of it went, I never knew where anything that they gave me came from. As I learned as I was growing up, we never talked about where the money came from. We just, you'll get a couple of bucks. At that time, a couple of bucks was a lot of money.
Sure.
I'm an old guy. I mean, going back a long way here.
Yeah, but back in the 50s. Yeah, a buck went a long way. Not so much today.
Even through my growing up years, my formative years, when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, I thought money was strictly a survival. I didn't think abundance is something I had to work harder for, and I'd spend as much as I made. I was always just ahead of broke. Even though I made good money.
So there was a message somewhere along the line that gave you that belief system.
Yeah.
That if I have it, I got to spend it, or I might not have it tomorrow. Is that what was going on in your brain, you think?
That's right. I was always worried that I'd run out of money. And so living on the edge, Margaret. And
wow, yes.
I'll tell you something. When I grew up, when I first really learned about the real purpose of money is through your experience. I don't know how long we've known each other, maybe
A good
10 years,
10,
would you say?
yeah, 10, maybe even 15 when I go back.
I
Because
think
we've been
I
in
met
business
you.
for 20 years. And I
You've been
know
at,
we had you at many of our events.
yes, and that's
Yeah.
where I woke up. I really woke up because and my whole mindset around money since that time, meeting you and learning about this scientific way of investing, I woke up and I wish I'd learned it 30 years earlier, Margaret.
Yeah, I
You
hear
probably
that
hear
often.
that a lot. Yeah.
I do hear that often, and I hear it from people who are savers. It's interesting to hear you say that you there's no talk rule, we call it, right?
Right. Right.
The no talk rule in the world of money just means either nobody talks about it at all, or we're even shamed if we bring it up.
Sure.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I remember being at a friend's house, and well, I'll give you a little bit of my background. I grew up with a dad who I was his right-hand man. You know what I mean? I toddled along with him all the time. And I probably became aware of money at a very young age, probably 5 or 6. And I listened to his stories. I watched him buy cattle or buy pigs or go to the granary, talk to the guys. I was always by his side, and I kept quiet and listened to these guys talk about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they talked about business a lot. And I didn't always know what they were talking about, but I knew it was important. And I went to the stockyards with my dad when he sold some cattle. He took a big truck full of cattle down to the Chicago stockyards. And so I was pretty open about money. I thought it was okay to ask things because I asked my daddy tons of questions. So much so he once in a while would say, enough, enough, Margie.
Right.
So
I was always taught it was impolite to bring it up. That's what I was
thing.
Yeah.
I went to a friend's house and we were at dinner, and her dad happened to be home, and they lived in a very nice house. And I just was curious, and I just said, "How much does your daddy make?" Can you imagine the reaction? I mean, knowing now what I know. Yeah, people just looked at me. The mom looked at me. Margie, we don't talk about such things. And I was like, just dumbfounded. I was a little ashamed. I felt ashamed and shut up and be quiet. And that was my first, and it's very vivid in my mind, that whole incident. And yeah, it's very interesting to know where people are coming from in the world of investing.
Yeah, and friends of mine at a young age had the same situation. It seemed like, I grew up in that baby boomer era, and there was a lot of us, a baby boomer. It was the biggest group, I think, of all the different groups of people came into their own probably post-war years, post-World War II.
Yeah.
And I just seemed like even at my friend's home, you'd be over for dinner or something, you'd be having lunch, and you might ask a question just like you. How much did you pay for a car? How much did you pay for this house? How much do you earn? It was a no-no. It definitely was a no-no. Yeah.
Well, if you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself, well, of course, polite people don't talk about those things. I get that. There is a time and place, but there's also there is a time and place to talk about it. Yeah. And if you find yourself feeling very constrained about the world of money and not able to talk about it, or unable to express yourself that way, or able to even identify your own relationship with money, you might want to just take stock. I mean, take a moment. Stop and think. Where do these attitudes come from? There's a lot of cliches around money. Money is evil. Oh, easy come, easy go. That might have been your mantra.
Or
right?
if you had a lot of it,
hard to get and hard to keep.
If you had a lot of money, you got it ill-gotten ways, right?
Yeah. Or maybe you're of the, maybe you feel guilty for growing up in a family that had ample means and
Yeah.
had a lot of money. That too isn't that's a negative connotation.
Right.
There's a lot of good you can do in this world
Right.
if you've got money. Here's the thing. Money's a resource. It's neither good nor bad. It's what
Right.
you do with it that makes it good or bad. It's neither here nor there. How do you get it? How do you keep it? How do you make it do good for you in your world? Well, that's what we're here to talk about.
Well, money is kind of a language, isn't it? A $10 bill is only a $10 bill because somebody somewhere says it is, right?
Yes.
That our form of currency today is just exists in language.
That's a really good statement there. It is something. It does only exist in our mind and in our language. Like I said, I grew up in the dairy country. We had a dairy farm, but my dad passed away when I was 12, and there were 7 kids underneath, or there were 12 of us. Yeah, 7 that were under me. So you can imagine there were 12 kids, and there were some tough times there, some really tough times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very blessed to have had the stories from my dad and his encouragement. He told me I could be anything I wanted to be. So he instilled in me sort of this idea of the American dream. And the American dream is very simply that you can be what you want to be in a free country with freedom of thought and freedom of language and freedom to do. You can be anything you want to be.
Right.
Educate yourself to be what you want. Okay, so I set out in life to do that. And he told me also, this is a little bit of my history and why I got into this business. And it was that my grandfather was very wealthy, which we didn't grow up wealthy. My grandfather, according to the stories, was worth $9 million way back in the 1920s. I never knew this grandfather. This was my dad's dad.
Okay.
And he died when my dad was quite young. And my dad was a tail end of a second marriage, and like 7 boys and then another 3 kids with the second marriage with his second wife, Kate Weber. At any rate, he just was at the very end of this very big German family. And
back then 9 million was probably the equivalent of maybe half a.
I can't even. I could extrapolate. I could project it forward, based on inflation and or some, what that could be. But it was quite substantial. Owned multiple farms. Much of it got dissipated through the lawyers and whatnot when the time came. It gave me a passion for knowing how money works. How do you make money and how do you keep it? And what's the meaning of it? And how do you make it do good in the world? Because on the other side of my upbringing was my mother, who was a very strong Catholic and really instilled some strong values there, and which I am also very grateful for. So the combination of the two, I see as really giving me the basis from which my life kind of went forward. And of course, taking advantage of opportunities as they came along. Now, let's go back to this conversation about no talk rule. Well, in a family where no one talks about things, here's the danger of not talking about things. And that is what you don't talk about will own you. If you can't talk about it, it owns you.
Mm-hmm.
If it constrains you and you can't verbalize and you're not comfortable in that world or verbalizing or talking about certain things, you're going to be ruled by it. And so what kinds of things happen is that people either become what? Well, let's just think about that for a minute together. What happens what happened in your life? Growing up, I got money, I got to spend it, or I might not have it. Mm-hmm. That's how you reacted. I grew up not having money, but I saved. I learned some lessons I'll tell you about in a minute about from the strawberry patch. But, I saved. And then I also spent on my brothers and sisters. And I found that generosity begets generosity. Right. And that can make for a happy life too. So, but in your situation, do you see the correlation or something in there for you? How
I
did that
sure do.
manifest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I say if I had learned about the scientific means of investing that we talk about, I would have done things a lot differently. But I was spending everything I made. I wasn't putting
We call
things
that
away like,
paycheck to paycheck. Yeah.
right.
Paycheck. And some people nowadays are living beyond their paycheck. In other words, they're borrowing and they're using credit cards to
Right.
get through the next of the month. What do they have? Too much month at the end of the check? Too much
That's right.
month
And-
at the end of the money? The money runs out before the end of the month? I mean, that kind of thing.
And I had been down that road too, so I know what that's like. Then it's the negative of putting money away, letting it compound, as we say. When you owe that debt negatively impacts.
Well, and
your
look at
money,
the stress that puts on families.
Yeah.
Can you think of the relationships and how that affects our relationships? Ouch, right?
It destroys marriages. It destroys families. Look what happens when somebody passes on and they've got a estate.
Yeah.
And the kids are fighting over who gets what, and you got more, and I should have, that kind of stuff is happening prevalent. So money can be when they say the root of all evil, it's not the money that's the root of all evil. It's what it does to people's minds.
It's the love of money that creates and the greed that goes along with that. And then, of course, once you let that enter in, there's the jealousy and the resentments that fester and can be hurtful, and things are said that wouldn't have been said or shouldn't have been said, and then hurt feelings feelings
it can destroy families,
separating families and all sorts of things. So money is a very important part of our lives. It weaves itself throughout every aspect of our lives.
Right.
And that's another thing. There are people who would like to ignore it because of all that you just said about how money can be negative and impact our lives in a negative way. There are people who, in order to avoid that, just avoid it.
Right.
They avoid it. They ignore it. They say, well, God will take care of me. Well, God will take care of you, no doubt. And one way he takes care of you is to give you an ability to make a living and have some money, because money is needed. For transactions. Having a proper mindset around it.
There's a lot said about money in the Bible, and God looks upon us to be good stewards of the money. And you know the parable of the that Jesus had laid out.
Yes. Go ahead. Tell us the parable.
Well, I'm kind of talking off the top of my head, but the money was doled out to three different individuals. One, quickly spent it, and the other one,
to paraphrase it, it's the master gives three servants. One of the servants takes it and hides it, doesn't do anything. The other one puts it in the bank, gains some interest. The other one invests it and earns money on it, makes it make money. Okay, when the master comes back, the one who hid it away, buried it in the ground basically, gives it back to him, because I know you're a hard master, he says, and I didn't want to lose it. So again, fear held him back, and he gives it back, and then the second one does what he did, and the master says okay, and then when he gets to the third one, okay, good job, well done. Then he takes the money from the one who just buried it, says, you lazy so-and-so, I'm going to take your money and give it to the one who knows how to make money, and gives it to the one who was the richer of it all. Right. So it's a very interesting parable. It does teach us a very valuable lesson about fear and how being afraid of money is not healthy or good for us, or even godly.
Yeah, and putting it in a parable like that really makes you grasp it. Makes sense. Any other way that you put it. That's why Jesus, laid it out in parables, because it was so much easier to understand that way. But even God looks upon when the money that we have if it's used wisely, is what God expects us to, because there is an abundance. He said, I want that you have life and have it more abundantly. So God didn't intend for us to be poverty stricken.
Well, when I think of abundance, I look out at let's say, my backyard. I have a beautiful backyard full of trees and all kinds of trees and all kinds of foliage. And I think, no kidding, God wanted us to live abundantly. That in itself is abundance. When you look out and see the number of plants and the various types of just plants, not even birds and creepy crawly things and all kinds of animals and all the different beauties of the world, not even the seven wonders. Just
well, that's right. If you look back, if you look back in the day of Jesus' day, having cattle was a sign of wealth. Having, just like you said, plants, fruit trees, and all that was. It wasn't all measured in the dollars and cents that we have today.
No, we've exchanged the having cattle or certain types of signs of wealth, which are still signs of wealth.
Sure, they are. Yeah,
of course, because they're property and we use them for certain.
Those
things.
are assets. Yeah,
right. They're assets, but we've created in language the value of a piece of paper that's $1 bill or a $20 bill or a $100 bill or coins, and that goes way, way back. That is used for exchange. So money is just a means of exchange, but it weaves itself throughout our lives and in every relationship. And that's the thing I want to have people think about for themselves, because without having a strong identifying strongly with where you came from, what were the messages that you got from your auntie or your uncle or your mom or your dad or from school or from society at large? Where did those messages come from that are either getting in your way or you want to use to encourage yourself with? They weren't all bad messages, hopefully. Some of us got some good messages, like I did from my dad. I really got some good messages in terms of the ability to create a life that I wanted to have and how to dream big and do things. And that's maybe why I started. You called me an entrepreneur. I call myself a serial entrepreneur. I've had multiple different businesses, and I've not always made money. I've lost some money on my businesses, but those were good learning.
Margaret, you mentioned
times.
You mentioned the word scarcity, and just a quick thing I wanted to inject here while we're on that subject. The pre-war generation, I mentioned the baby boomers, the pre-war generation went through what we call the only depression in this country. And so scarcity was prevalent, I think, amongst the populace at that time. So
yes. So it was a huge event. And even then, though, I think it was about 30% of the country was unemployed. Mm-hmm. But even that means 70% of the country population was working.
Was still working, sure.
Was still working. So people did make it through. Who made it through that? Well, when I say make it through, not everyone, a lot of people in the Midwest lost their farms, and there were some very, very terrible or difficult, I want to say difficult times. Unfortunately, some people even took their own lives because of the stock market crash, which kind of that off.
Yeah.
And hopefully people have a better sense of reality and not to put their whole life on their financial, net worth. If that's what your life is about, well, ooh, wow, you're in for trouble. Because most of us can get through any difficulty with a little help from our friends and family. And that's what families did. They bound together. They moved in with Aunt Sally and Uncle Joe and worked the farm together. And they then got back on their feet, and then they went on their own farm, and then they did, or whatever their situation was. If it was in the cities, then they got odd jobs and, did little entrepreneurial things. You hear stories about people selling apples on the sidewalks and all of that. Yeah, hard times will toughen up a group of people.
Actually, I think wasn't it World War II that literally took us out of that Depression era? And
let's hope we don't have to go to World War to take us out of
no, right,
downturn.
Right. Don't want to see, and it wouldn't be the same as it was then. I mean, in those days, I think a lot of women went to work in factories to help make some of the ammunition and things used in the war years.
Yeah,
and it got everybody working again. It put them all back to work, and that's what brought some prosperity back in the United States.
Yeah, but what happened to the mindset of that generation? I think you were getting at, and that is that they came out of that Depression very fearful.
Sure.
Very fearful of the stock market, very fearful of even banks, because banks went on.
Right. Run on banks.
Yeah. Well, we put into place as a society, government, some regulations and controls. And I'm not saying any of it's perfect. They've done away with some of it. They've gone back and forth on some of it. You'd have to do a whole segment on, the banking industry to digest all of that. But that's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about is where your mindset comes from. And for sure, that experience did impact that generation in that way, just as the boom that happened afterwards impacted the next generation in a way that maybe, they spend more freely and not necessarily always in the best way. They didn't know how to be savers. So the pendulum sometimes swings too far and too far. Better to get yourself grounded in it isn't so much, when I say grounded, it isn't so much about how much you make. Certainly you need to, get paid a good wage for what you're, relative to what you are doing. Got it. So you're making a good wage relative to your talent and your experience and what you're going. Then you live within your means and save some. That's
the key, living within your means. Yeah.
That's where don't spend it all.
I made the good money, but as soon as money started to, to get better for me as salaries and income went, my standard of living started to come up there.
Yes.
So it's easy to let that happen, oh my gosh, we've got extra money in the house. We got a discretionary money.
Yeah.
We've got to spend that. Where am I going to, instead of thinking about, maybe I could bury that money, because there's going to come a day when I'm going to need that kind of money somewhere and it won't be there. And that did happen to me. So
yes. Thank you for sharing that, because that has been, you're not alone in that story at all. And oftentimes, you'll have if you're married, you'll have one partner that's a saver and you'll have another partner who's the one who wants to spend it.
A spender.
And that can create tremendous conflict. So you really need to come together as a couple and the spender is not always bad.
Right.
Because the one who wants to save everything can be a little miserly. So you got to be careful you're not so miserly that you're not enjoying life today.
Right.
If it's all about just accumulating, that can be just as detrimental to a relationship and to life as can be the one who just wants to spend everything.
Yeah.
So again, it's that moderation and learning how to make those decisions in a healthy manner. And the only way you can be healthy about it, quite frankly, is to know yourself and to really understand the biases that come along with just living, just growing up, and look at your background, look at your family, not to condemn, not to shake a finger and say, oh, my mom was so bad, or oh, my dad didn't do this. No, what good does that do you? Don't do that. do it to be understanding, to understand your background, to understand, okay, I can keep that part. That part really resonates and makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I got to save something, maybe. Yes. I should participate in my 401k that's provided by my company. That might be a good place to
I
start.
didn't do that very well. That's one of the big drawbacks I had.
That's a
Yeah,
big
I didn't do
mistake.
that.
A lot of people, don't do that.
And that's where I learned from the programs you introduced me to, the myths and truths of money and investing, and the 2-day event that you have. I had breakthrough thinking
Yeah.
because of those programs, Mark.
Yeah, we call it breakthrough thinking because you do have breakthroughs.
Yeah.
When you can identify things, when things are in a world of you don't even know what you don't know, know. But then you become aware, even slightly aware.
Right.
You'll have an aha moment. You'll go, whoa, that's starting to pinch. Usually it doesn't feel good at first.
Right.
Because we don't like to admit that we've been wrong. We don't like to, or even if it's not being wrong, it's just we don't want to think there's something else that we need to know or whatever is going on. It's the rare person who is actually looking for transforming their life. I mean, we like to think we were all put together, right? Well,
Yep.
Most of us are not all put together at any point. That's why we're still living. It's called life, Keep learning, and keep growing. And
it's a learning experience right up till the end. So believe me, I'm there.
I said to somebody the other day, they asked me how I was doing. Well, I'm still learning and I'm still growing. I guess I'm still meant to be here. And so that's called life. But here, going back to what you're talking about with this
breakthrough
event, breakthrough thinking. That's when when you recognize the problem. That's what leads to the breakthrough. Breakdowns lead to breakthroughs, and unless you're willing to go to those breakdowns, you're never going to get to the next step. You're never going to get beyond what you learned as a 5 or a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old.
Some people have to touch bottom before that they'll come to grips with that part of it.
Yeah, and we hope we catch them before they get that far down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. And unfortunately, I think we're growing up a generation now that doesn't see work ethic the same way the previous generation did, or prior generations.
I was talking to some friends, actually clients of mine, and I consider them friends, and they have a small business, and they're having a hard time finding help.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this very thing. But, I don't see it in my grandchildren. I don't see it so much in, I don't know. I guess it's out there. It is certainly out there because employers are having a hard time finding good employees. And I do see it here and there, but I don't know what the anecdote is. Maybe we just have to live through these cycles. And,
I think today some of this came about because of the COVID year. We blame a lot on the COVID year, but it did have a big impact on people's thinking toward work. A lot of people didn't want to go back to work after getting some free money from the government because of the hardship. Let's face it, the government was free and loose with money, as they usually are with our taxpayers' money. And I'm not blaming it all on the government. I think a lot of it was people just got used to staying at home, and it just became easier.
Could be part of it. Yeah. I think for our listeners, though, if you're listening to a podcast about money and investing, you're probably the type of person who's trying to get a good handle on their life. You're trying to find some answers. And hopefully by taking the step of doing a little inventory or, reaching out to a professional in this world, in our line of work. I mean, that's why we call ourselves coaches and why we use a coaching model to guide our interactions with investors, because when I'm in conversation with people, I'm not looking to sell them another product. That's the farthest thing from my intentions. What I'm trying to do is help them reach a realization, to have those aha moments, to educate them, and then coach them to coming to terms and coming to recognize for themselves, discover for themselves what it is they want for their life, meaning their American dream. And the American dream isn't just for Americans. It's really a global human phenomenon.
Well, that's why there's so many people coming here.
Yes, that is a good sign of it, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. That's a manifestation of it.
I don't see them rushing to countries like Venezuela or China or knocking at the door of those places.
Well, the human spirit, let's just talk about it in a general sense of it, because even in those countries, people who have the desire to express themselves, to be human beings with creative juices. I mean, that's what makes us, human beings. Our creativity, our ability to speak and do and work and have a meaningful life, raise a family, have a few nice things, go to places and have some wonderful experiences in life. So all of that takes some financial well-being, and that's what this program is
quality
all about.
Of life.
Exactly. So this whole program is meant to help people kind of get a grasp for themselves on this whole issue of money. And first thing is to recognize if you're an avoider, you can't avoid it. Okay?
Yeah.
If you're trying to avoid this and put it all on your husband or all on your wife or all on the government or on somebody else, anybody else, you're in for a really rough life, because it's going to smack you in the face someday, and that's a tough road. Now, so get real and get. Let me finish this up, hon.
Sure.
And so my coaching to those folks, if you're in that camp, would be to, take good stock. It's not hard to learn a few basic things, and that can keep you very safe and very in charge of your life, empower you around the world of money. Now, if you're on the other spectrum and all you want to do is accumulate and you're so fearful of losing money, that's not really good either. Or you're afraid, when they got FOMO, fear of missing out, you're greedy. Fear and greed are the great motivators in the financial world, and the investment industry will prey upon you, prey as in like a vulture, not prey like in a good sense of preying, but, like a vulture does.
Margaret, you probably observed some people who have a lot of money. And if people think having more money all the time is the only purpose in life, some people die rich but miserable.
Yes.
Rich but completely.
That's why I'm painting these two pictures. Yeah. And the whole purpose of our work, whether I'm doing it here on the podcast with an individual or a couple in their business, like I did earlier this morning, or doing classes, we do the 2-day event, we do 1-hour events. I mean, we do all kinds of things to help people get their arms around, really empower them in the world of money. And the first thing to accept is that money weaves itself throughout your life. You can't avoid it. And if you are too greedy or too avoiding, you're going to have problems with it. So the first thing is to get very grounded. And then the next thing is to get knowledgeable enough. You don't have to know everything, but you need to know the right things. To be safe in the world of investing, you need to know a few things. You need to know who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. Kind of. Where do you find truth in the world of investing? So that's,
you said can't avoid it, and I was saying, well, in many instances, I thought it was avoiding me.
Well, I don't think so, Jim. You've been a very successful. I wanted to say this from the very beginning. I want our audience to know how incredibly successful you have been in so very many ways. Yes, you shared with us some of the hardships, and I've had my ups and downs too. And so just because you've had a few ups and downs does not make you unsuccessful.
Right.
And
Right.
you can be very successful in some areas. Like you mentioned, some people have, well, money is so relative. It's so hard to say, are wealthy. It's so relative to say what's the number, right? But, we could say there are multimillionaires, the billionaires, and, it isn't always as pretty as it looks. I think I heard from Elon Musk, I think he recently made a statement, someone commented how they wanted to be him, or they wanted to be just like Elon Musk because, he was, at the moment, he was the wealthiest man in the world or in the America or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and his comment was, no, you don't. To be where he is, he says, my brain never shuts off. You would not want to be me. The guy is in constant motion. His brain is constant. And that's why he's got multiple businesses, yeah.
Yeah. He's
Most of us do not want to live in that realm.
Talk about multitasking, in
Yeah.
his mind. This guy is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Yeah.
It's amazing. And he is a phenomenon. And as are many
Mhm.
great billionaires and all that kind of thing. They've got a different mindset. And certainly that
Well,
isn't
Elon
what
Musk
got
came here.
wants
He took advantage
all of us.
of the American dream, as you were talking before, and he came here, and that's where he made his first fortune. I think
Yeah.
he was one of the founders of the PayPal system.
That's right.
And that got him his first big infusion of money. But he didn't stop there and say, okay, I got all I need. I'm just going to shut it off.
Yeah.
That didn't happen with him. He's one of those individuals.
Yeah. So this brings us to, this, recently we had another one of our phenomena, Powerball, Mega Millions. Mega Millions had a 1.3 or 1.2 billion, Mega Millions. And then the Powerball just got won by someone, 1.3 billion. The payouts are quite differently. If you take the cash payout, it's generally about half of that. And then if you pay the taxes on it, it's about half of that. But it's still a very large number. $350 million to this recent Powerball winner after taxes, if he takes it all in taxes. Well, oftentimes the winners of these lotteries, no matter how big they are actually broke. Isn't that amazing? I doubt the billion, this $350 million, they'll be broke in 5 years. I hope they're not. I hope they get good counseling and good coaching. But it all goes back to a mindset.
Right.
It all goes back to how do you handle it? If you're not handling money well,
that's right,
and you're working as a teacher, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, checkout clerk at Walmart, I don't care what your job is. If you're not able to handle that, you're never going to be able to handle a $1 billion payout. You'll be so messed up, you'll lose your friends, or you won't even know who your friends are.
It
because
happens.
Everybody and their uncle comes after you, telling you they're your long lost cousin from Timbuktu.
Best way to see that, Margaret, and put it in reality is look at these athletes that sign these big money contracts. Football players,
billions.
baseball players, basketball. These guys have to have coaching. They offer coaching to these young athletes because they're not ready to handle all that money. First thing they want to do is go out and buy a bunch of Lamborghinis. And
there's nothing wrong with a Lamborghini. Certainly nothing wrong.
How many
with
can you drive at one time? Exactly.
Nothing wrong with even having a collection of your favorite thing. And if cars are your favorite thing, let's not say there's anything wrong with any of that. But I truly understand the underlying meaning of what you're saying. Is that
everybody loves you when you get that kind of money coming into your life. Everybody, all those friends that you didn't even know you had, suddenly know you're there.
Exactly. So there's that. Think about how. But here's a positive thing about that whole Mega Millions Powerball blah thing. When I was a little girl, I used to lay in bed with my little sister Monica, just under me, sister, and we used to dream, if I had $1 million, I'd have a horse farm, and I would have horses, and I would give lessons, and I would have trail rides. Well, Jim, you know me. I have one day at 50 some years old, I walked out of my back door and I went, I have it now.
Have everything I thought about.
What I was thinking about back then, I don't know if I had everything, but I had that. Yeah. And so what we put in our brains, all I'm saying is there's truth to that. I feel there is. I feel there's real truth to whatever you're saying. If you're putting out words like, I'll never make it, I can't make my bills, I can't, or I won't, I can't, I won't. You're right. You're right.
You won't.
You won't, and you can't.
Right.
You'll never make it. I don't care how much money you have. You could win $1 billion, and you still will be in that frame of mind.
Whether you say I will or I won't, both ways you're right.
Exactly. That was by a famous guy. I think that was Jim Rohn or somebody who said that, something on that order. So what you think about comes about. So that's really important. I know those sound cliche, but it's really true. And in the world of money, it manifests itself in our lives. And you and I have both lived it. So learn about what you've got in your brain, learn where it came from, what you want to keep. You've got some good work ethic, good work habits. Oh, I don't have good work ethic, good work habits. I have to get up in the morning. I'm always fighting myself. Well, then you can change that. That's what makes us human beings and not a dog. Right. I mean, we can change ourselves. We can transform who we are.
Yeah.
We aren't stuck. You're not stuck anywhere.
One of the things I learned through, many of the teachings that you had brought to me, just going to the events you put on, is that with that breakthrough. I forget now where I was going with this, but I did learn so much that it changed my biases a lot, and I didn't even know I had the biases until you pointed things.
Oh, that is such good insight, Jim. Thank you for that. Yes, we all carry around a ton of biases. Some of them that were forced upon us as kids growing up, not even knowing it, just into the background of the noise or what people said, or someone, like I said, Aunt Sally, Uncle Joe, whatever, mom, dad, teachers, all the people who influence us growing up, we don't even know what's there. So getting that out in the open, thinking about it a little bit. So why do I go out and buy so many pairs of shoes? You might ask yourself, I don't know what everybody's got something that me, it was horses for a while. At any rate. So that's really important. Find out about your biases. Find out about where your thinking comes from. Find out, and then you can get yourself on a track that is healthier. Secondly, once you recognize how money weaves itself throughout your life, you can get into some good habits.
Yeah.
And the habit that creates a wealth accumulator. I have many clients I call PWAs. They're prodigious wealth accumulators. They've been savers and hard workers, and they've known to get good advice. I have another thought I want to share in a minute. But they've gotten good counsel or good advice in investing, and so they've invested and they've made good money, and so they've accumulated. I mean,
right.
They didn't come from a lot, but they got a lot. They've got many, many, many wonderful stories. So the first thing you have to do is learn how to get up in the morning and make your bed.
Mm-hmm. There's a book
in the morning, make your bed, brush your teeth, get to work. Find
That's
work
right.
that is meaningful. And if you don't have meaningful work initially, that's okay. Just do something. And then look for opportunities and look for options and get educated in areas, and then keep moving up the ladder.
Well, what you're talking about is
to what you can.
You
become an investor.
We're living in a world full of abundance right now. It's just what you're saying, Margaret, because all those things are available to us here. That's a nice thing about living in a free country is we can take advantage of things. Sometimes we take them for granted because they're too easy to get in this country.
This is true. This
unfortunately, but it's good to hear you point these out because sometimes people just need to have that jogged
first you have to. So what are the steps? The steps are you learn how to get up and go to work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Take care of yourself. Take responsibility.
Yep.
Then live within your means. This next step is you live within your means as best you can, no matter what. If you need to share an apartment when you're young with a buddy or whatever to cut the expenses until you can get the next big job and get married, whatever life gives you. Okay. So you live within your means and then you save a little bit.
Yeah.
Get involved with, if you have a company plan, start there. Start with a small amount and increase it as you get raises. Don't spend it all. Don't spend everything to the limit. You taught that lesson. So then you become what I just described as a prodigious wealth accumulator. And then you have to educate yourself to a certain extent to keep it safe, to keep yourself from being taken advantage by the investment industry. That's really critical.
Right.
There are people who've worked very hard all their lives. I've heard some incredible stories, some terrible stories of people who have worked very hard and then lost it because of the investment industry or someone in the investment industry that took them off track.
Right.
And they had to start all over. We don't want that happening to people, and it's not necessary. It's totally not necessary. You alluded to it earlier by the science of investing. There is a way of investing that can give you that peace of mind, give you access to the peace of mind. But that's the steps to success in terms of financial success. Other types of success in your life, you'll have to create out of your own heart. I can only give you coaching on how to become financially successful. And that's what we're here to do today. Yeah. So start with, hey, how do you look at money? What's your relationship with it? Right?
Yeah. Oh, and that's a big, and people go, I never really thought that deeply about it.
Yeah, people don't. People don't talk to it. Why? Because of what we talked about earlier. Because we live with this no talk rule. Nobody brings it up. Mom and dad didn't sit down with us and say, hey, you got to be able to balance a checkbook. You got to be able to pay your rent. You got to be able to balance your life and take responsibility for your life someday. And I hope you're very successful. And here's your education.
And just like you said earlier, you were talking about husband and maybe the spouse is a spender and the other one's a miser or a saver and an accumulator. And you're going to have what do they call it? A cognitive dissonance situation going there. Is that what they call it?
That's right. Cognitive dissonance. That feeling of, ooh, ow, that doesn't feel so good. I got to learn something about that.
Yeah. Oh no,
well,
I want to.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And there's other reasons for, sometimes people get addicted to certain things. Gambling can be one of them. Drinking can be one of them. All those other things. But putting that aside, none of those things are present in the relationship. It can still have, if two people are not on the same page with how do we handle money?
Exactly.
What do we do with it?
Yep. I think it's very wise for a young couple that is thinking of being together for a long time, perhaps marriage, etc., that they actually do that 2-day event that we do. Get a handle on what's your purpose. Get a handle on how you're going to manage your money. Get a handle on understanding how investing works. Get a handle on all of it, because that can be, that can make or break the relationship. Absolutely.
And just like I keep saying, some of the programs you introduced me to, like the myths and truths of money and investing. It's what is it? About an hour long.
It's about an hour long.
You do it virtually, and that was a turning point for me. Watching that and watching that 2-day event I went to.
Yeah.
Those those things, combination of that, started my thinking altered my thinking completely. I had breakthroughs and transformations. But it happened too late in life. I wish I would have had those earlier. That's what
Well, we have
I
a
keep
saying,
saying.
Jim,
Yeah.
and it goes like this: it's never too late.
Never too
Better
late.
it better is early. Excuse me. Earlier is better,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
it's never too late. It depends upon your goals, and what you want to accomplish.
Right.
But it's never too late to put aside something to get you where you want to be and give you a little comfort.
Well, I
along the way.
am
But-
so I love the way that Veritas does business, because the world of coaching to me is so important for people. I've had money managers before that seemingly only wanted to see me maybe once a year, if that. Just don't call me, we'll call you. And I never really heard from them, but I got a statement every month, and it showed me, did I make or lose, or did oh. But
That's
the
a
coaching
very
part of it,
normal- yeah.
it was missing. It was missing in my life, and I needed it. And that's the thing that you brought to the table, is the coaching and the whole philosophy of coaching, rather than being this so-called advisor, that which you are, but it's the coaching that is so necessary, because people get into those ruts in their life. Especially when inheritance maybe comes in, or they've hit a downslide or something like that. So the coaching is so important, Margaret. It just yeah.
Well,
And that's
one of the things that we are up to is transforming the investing experience for the investor, going from a world that is basically speculating, gambling, and selling you stuff
right.
to one where you're empowered to make decisions, and you discover for yourself what that means, what money is, and how it can fulfill on your purpose in life. And so it's built on a stronger foundation. And the foundation has to be personal, and that's where the coaching comes in. The coaching comes in creating that relationship with the client and allowing them to understand their decision-making process, not just sell them a product and walk away.
Right.
That's not fulfilling for me, and it usually doesn't go well for the investor as well. So,
No,
well, I think we gave a lot today to investors. I hope that they take away maybe from this conversation we've had the desire to look at their own life, their own relationship with money, and maybe even if they're married, have a conversation with their spouse. What's your relationship? Oh, well, money's hard to make and it's hard to keep, and I don't like spending anything on anything. That's a miserable life. Or I just want to spend whatever comes in. That's a miserable life. So, whatever the conversation brings, hopefully it'll help you come together and, look for people in your area, or, give us a call if you need some help along those lines to find a good coach.
I think we covered a lot about, and I think we threw out some things people probably will take under advisement, because we hit on some things, I'm sure, that people might be listening to are having an issue with right now. Maybe with us pointing it out, it might help make some changes.
Thank you for watching. Integrity Investing will return.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright